This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stacy Yarborough. I am your town clerk and tax collector, and at this time I would like to call the annual budget town meeting to order. This meeting is brought pursuant to Chapter 7, Section 706 of the North Haven Town Charter. Before we can move forward, the first order of business is to elect a moderator for this meeting pursuant to our town charter. The moderator must have been a registered voter in the town as of the last election, and only those citizens registered to vote in North Haven and citizens of the United States 18 years of age or more who pay taxes to the town on an assessment of property of not less than $1,000 on the most recent grand list may vote. Lastly, for the vote upon the moderator and any other properly noticed issues that we might vote upon tonight, the regulations as to being an elector remains in force. If you're not sure if you're an elector, I do have the voter registry list up front, and you can check with me. So, the floor is now open for nominations for a meeting and moderator. Are there any nominations? Is there a second? Is there any other nomination for meeting moderator? Hearing none, I'll now put to vote all in favor of Mr. John Lambert as tonight's meeting moderator. Please signify by saying aye. All opposed by saying nay. Vote for the moderator passes. At this time, I declare Mr. John Lambert the moderator for our budget meeting.
Good evening. The first order of business for me is to ask the town clerk to read the call of tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. On April 4th, 2019, the following notice was provided. Notice is hereby given pursuant to Chapter 7, Section 706 of the North Haven Town Charter that the annual budget town meeting of the electors and citizens qualified to vote in town meetings of the town of North Haven, Connecticut, will be held in the auditorium of the North Haven High School, 221 Elm Street, on Monday, May 13, 2019 at 7 p.m. This town budget meeting will conduct the following business. Number 1, to consider and act upon the recommendation of the Board of Finance to take action regarding the budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. Number 2, to establish the due date and number of installments for the payment of property taxes, real estate, personal property, motor vehicle, and supplemental motor vehicle, in accordance with Sections 12-142 and 12-144A of the Connecticut General Statutes. And 3, pursuant to Section 7-7 of the Connecticut General Statutes, to adjourn said meeting at its conclusion and to submit the question concerning the adoption of a budget for fiscal year July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, to a vote by paper ballot on Tuesday, May 21st, 2019, including the establishment of the exact hours of voting at referendum, pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 7-9B. That voting will take place between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. at the following North Haven polling place. All districts: Mildred Wakely Rec Center at 7 Lindsley Street. The aforesaid recommendations will be placed on paper ballots as the following question. Shall the town of North Haven, in accordance with the recommendation of the Board of Finance, approve and adopt a budget consisting of $54,590,313 for the Board of Education and $49,195,637 for the town government, for a total amount of $103,785,950 for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. The voters approving said question will vote yes, and those opposing said question will vote no. Applications for absentee ballots will be available in the town clerk's office at 18 Church Street, North Haven, Connecticut. Please contact the town clerk if you have any questions or concerns at 203-239-5321. The extension is 630.
Thank you. As noted by the town clerk and in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 7-7 and in accordance with the action taken by the Board of Finance. This annual budget town meeting will adjourn at its conclusion and submit the question concerning the adoption of the budget discussed tonight for the fiscal year July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020 to a town vote by paper ballot. This vote will occur Tuesday, May 21, 2019, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. at one centralized polling place located at the Mildred Wakely Recreation Center, located at 7 Lindsley Street, North Haven. No other business can or will be conducted during the course of tonight's proceeding. So I'll ask now that the town clerk read the first and third items on the agenda for discussion only this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. So as Mr. Lambert noted, I'm going to read the items out of order. We'll deal with the first and the third items on the agenda, and then we'll have a presentation by our first selectman, Mr. Frieda, and our superintendent of schools, Mr. Stirk, and then we'll take discussion on the first and the third items. And then after all that's done, those are the items that will be referred to referenda. And then tonight, we'll go to item number 2 on the agenda, and we will actually vote on item number 2 tonight. So that's the order we'll be going in. Number 1, to consider and act upon the recommendation of the Board of Finance and take action regarding the budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. And number 3, pursuant to Section 7-7 of the Connecticut General Statutes, to adjourn said town meeting at its conclusion and submit the question concerning the adoption of the budget for fiscal year 2019 through June 30th, 2020 to a vote by paper ballot on Tuesday, May 21st, 2019, including the establishment of the hours of voting at referenda pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 7-9. Voting will take place between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. at the following North Haven polling place only. All districts, Mildred Wakely Rec Center at 7 Lindsley Street. And that the following question shall be placed on the paper ballot. Shall the town of North Haven, in accordance with the recommendation of the Board of Finance, approve and adopt a budget consisting of $54,590,313 for the Board of Education and $49,195,637 for the town government, for a total amount of $103,785,950 for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. Voters approving said question will vote yes, and those opposing said question will vote no.
Thank you. For the ensuing discussion, all speakers are to come to the microphone at the front and to state their name and address for the record. And your comments won't be audible for the local TV broadcast of this. The items, any discussion should be limited to discussion of the items on the agenda. At this time, I'd like to recognize the first selectman to come forward and speak to the question of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. And as you know, this is the second presentation of this budget as we were here last month. I'd like to take you through a top-line overview of what we're presenting for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019. As I mentioned last month, this budget has a no tax increase for this fiscal year. The total budget, as you see, in terms of from the town side to the Board of Ed side to the total budget, are the numbers that you just heard from Stacy and John Lambert. The town side, you see the dollar change, which includes the debt service that the town incurs for both the Board of Ed and the town. The Board of Ed budget increase, which is 2.9%, and the total budget increase of the $4.8 million. The breakdown of the incremental expenses, as you see it, a little bit more detail. We have this year's town health insurance went up $401,000. The capital, the debt, for that total incremental amount that we're proposing. When we look at the breakdown, 53% of the budget is for the Board of Education and 47% is for the town side. When we look at adding the debt service into the budget, now we're starting to pay on the new middle school, and we're still paying off the high school, which was completed in 2005. So the Board of Education, when we look at the debt that the town incurs in the overall budget, 58% goes to the Board of Ed, and 42% of the budget is for the town. 69.5% of the current debt in this year's budget is to support the middle school and high school debt. Let's take a look at the capital requests. This is what we reviewed last month. From our police department standpoint, new cruisers, laptops need to be replaced, body armor critical has to be replaced, and this emergency light siren package. From the fire standpoint, you see station security. We're still paying for the fire truck ladder lease, the self-contained breathing apparatus, which is critical. This budget has a used ladder truck that we're proposing, and also a generator in the fire station. The libraries you see, we need to replace some of the personal computers that many of the people in the public use when they use our library. IT, we need to get off a Windows 7 platform, which will be obsolete by the end of the year. And our public works, this concrete floor has to be done, and that's the total there. The total capital requests are $936,000, and that's a breakout by department. Now, I'd like to pause here and share with you something I mentioned at the last meeting and what we've been mentioning at our various public meetings. The town is doing very well right now. Our top-line revenue growth from new businesses that are coming in this fiscal year yields $2,348,000 of incremental growth. With the Amazon project and numerous other projects that I'm involved with, I can tell you with 100% certainty the grand list will continue to grow. So it's been my goal all along, ladies and gentlemen, to try to improve the town where we can, supporting public safety, supporting education, not letting the town decay in terms of infrastructure. And one of the philosophies I've always had from my career as CEO in my companies is to improve the corporation through the top-line revenue growth without an impact on the shareholders. And the citizens of North Haven are the shareholders. So we're able to, because of our top-line revenue growth with all of the new businesses coming in, and because we've been planning for years, knowing the debt service would start to rise with the new middle school, paying off the high school, with the new police department, we've been putting debt reserves aside that we're carrying over in this fiscal year. And that is critically important. We could have kept the reserves and bumped up the fund balance even higher, but that would have yielded a tax increase. We've been putting reserves aside for years to prepare for this coming fiscal year. And that, along with the top-line revenue growth, is why there's no tax increase this year. So the mill rate will remain at 31.18. Again, a synopsis of the budget. You see the numbers that we just reviewed. From the town standpoint, the Board of Ed, the capital, and the contingency fund remains the same. So what does this budget do? This budget increases the level of police and fire services, adding dispatchers in the 911 dispatchers in our dispatch department. Enhances the town's radio emergency communication system. Why is that important? Well, today was a good example. in terms of what we thought was a breach in our school system. And I give our superintendent, Patrick Stirk, and his administrators a great deal of credit for managing that the way they did, working with our police department. So enhancing the town's radio emergency communication system as part of this budget, it gives us quicker access from a police department standpoint to the Board of Education and the school system in the event of an emergency. And I believe that's critically important. It upgrades our information technology. Again, the Windows 7 platform. It upgrades, as I mentioned, our 911 emergency dispatch system. It fully supports our education budget. The request is fully supported from the Board of Education. It fully funds our pension system, 100% of the annual required contribution. We don't borrow from a pension fund to pay other expenses. The pension system is rock solid here in town, and the rating agencies really like that. It upgrades the equipment in our Public Works Department. And we're pleased to be able to have a no tax increase because, as I said, financially we're doing very well. Our top line revenue is growing. We continue to retain and be AAA rated financially. We continue to grow our grant list by bringing in new businesses. And again, we've been preparing for the debt by putting away debt reserves. I support this budget, ladies and gentlemen. This is a budget that allows us to improve the town, not just maintain what we have, to improve what we have. It enhances the level of services and yields a no tax increase. So I encourage everyone to come out. I support this budget. Tuesday, May 21st, all voting at the Mildred Wakely Rec Center from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to ask if Mr. Stirk would like to have a moment to address the people at home and the people here.
Good evening, everyone. The approved budget for the current 2018-2019 school year is $53,052,836. Our current proposed budget is $54,590,313. The requested increase is $1,537,477, which equates to 2.9%. Within this proposed budget, we deliberately did not add staff or make programmatic changes. Teachers have been asked to do so much in regards to new curriculum, they now need time to continue to get acclimated and build capacity with what is currently in place. This slide shows the breakdown of requested increase for the 2019-2020 school year. Medical insurance is a $468,302 increase. Total wage increase of $881,547, and a transportation increase of $207,621. The total actual increase is $1,557,470, which is higher than our overall requested increase. We were able to lower this number to $1,537,477 through planful and purposeful budgeting. Our overall district priorities are as follows: to strengthen curriculum, instruction, and student assessment, to provide high-quality professional development, to increase the use of student performance data to inform decisions about teaching and learning, and to increase staff and student access to technology. I believe within this budget, we are able to accomplish each of those priorities. What are we able to accomplish with the proposed 2019-2020 budget? We are able to meet all contractual obligations, preserve certified and non-certified positions, maintain our focus on improving the achievement of all students, continue to strengthen student and staff access to technology. This budget is labor intensive. We can do without things we cannot do without people. Thank you for your time and your support.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the discussion to the public. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the budget? Yes, sir. Come down. I'll call on you next.
Hello, my name is James Corno. I live at 38 Mullen Drive, North Haven. My biggest concern with this budget is how much money you're paying to the city employees. I think the increases is just too much. Your budget should have been kept in line with last year's. And just because you have the money doesn't mean you have to spend it. So I'm not in favor of this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Barrett, Crestview Drive, North Haven, Connecticut. So I'd just like to state for the record that when I ask questions, state facts, or share my opinions either at the microphone or in my written and submitted letters to the editor, my sole intention is to inform the public, period. No other ulterior motives. So even though I have repeatedly clarified that my comments should not be taken personally, I believe that sometimes they are mistakenly perceived as attacks either on individuals or town departments. So that's why I try to focus my comments on the budget figures, because the really nice thing about numbers is that they have no political agenda, they have no egos, no bias at all. And we should be able to have respectful discourse about the budget numbers and what they represent, namely general services and individualized taxes. So I'd like to propose that we just focus on the issues rather than instigating any type of childish behaviors. And in particular, there are three categories of issues. For each department, I believe the first category is training, qualifications, and dedication. The second category is the tactical, day-to-day decision-making that each and every professional in every department has to make. And then the third category is administration, budgeting, and strategic planning. So I can only speak for myself in that I don't comment on those first two categories for any department. I assume that all of our hired employees, our teachers, our police officers, our firefighters are very well trained, very highly qualified, and that they make very good decisions each day in the jobs that they do. However, in this third category, administration and budgeting and strategic planning, I believe that we taxpayers have both the right and the duty to directly contribute to this third category, and we also have veto power over the budget approval process. And so if there is any lingering doubt, I would like to repeat the question that was posed by Mr. Frieda in an answer from the people of North Haven. We want the unvarnished truth in real time, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the wonderful. We want the information revealed as facts or credible rumors with frequent updates, the context, and the specific implications for the people of North Haven. I am simply trying to place all of the cards on the table, not just the best hand that we can put forward, but all of the cards, so that all of the taxpayers can make informed decisions and cast fact-based votes. The details that Mr. Frieda presented this evening in his PowerPoint presentation are accurate, but they don't tell the whole story. The accumulated $1.4 million in bond premiums that fund part of the 2019-20 debt payment are not included in this $103.8 million budget. This $1.4 million is completely off the books. And why, might you ask? Because if you include that $1.4 million in the total budget, then it would increase from a total of $4.9 million up to $6.3 million. which is even further from the 2.6% growth that was targeted initially by the Board of Selectmen. So reality is not necessarily reflected on the pages of the packet that was handed out this evening. However, the transfer of over $2.5 million from our rainy day fund to support operational expenses is included in the 1920 budget and causes the general fund balance to dip below the optimal 8% level. In addition, personnel increases exceed over $1.1 million in this budget. So in closing, I do not support this 2019-20 annual budget. I believe that there's a lot of transparency that remains to be seen, and I believe that there are additional cuts that could be made. We could still move forward, and we could still deliver a mill rate decrease to the people of North Haven. So, Mr. Moderator, if you wouldn't mind, I do have two questions, one for Mr. Frieda and one for Mr. Stirk. Am I allowed to ask questions as part of this?
You're allowed to ask questions. No one is required to answer a question.
Okay, I'll give my best. So I'm not sure whether Mr. Frieda will be able to answer this, but if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to just ask, given the recent public health concerns that I read today in the cover of the first page of the New York Times, addressed throughout the press, I'm just wondering, is the communication system that is being installed both at police headquarters and at the Ridge Road Elementary School, is this a 5G system?
It would be best if you asked all your questions at once so that they can be answered.
So that's my only question for Mr. Frieda. And then for Mr. Stirk, I believe, I'm not sure whether you stated this evening, but in your previous public hearing presentation, you stated that this budget does not include any new positions. So I'm just wondering, Mr. Stirk, does it include a new security officer at the high school? And are any of the 18 positions that are currently posted online for the North Haven Public Schools, are any of those positions new positions?
Is that all? I mean,
That's it, just those two questions.
And are you finished then?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the question about 5G, I'm not sure. It started out as a 4G component, and I have to double check to see if it has an add-on capacity as 5G, because we started the process in this a couple of years ago to upgrade this system, so we'll have to get back with that answer.
The new security guard has actually come from the elimination of a position, and the 18 positions that are posted are due to resignations and retirements. There are no new positions added. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the budget? Ms. Boemi. Good evening.
Sally Boemi, 5 Blossom Drive. It's always a goal of any municipal budget to have a 0 mill rate increase. It's a great goal, and this budget has accomplished that goal. So it's difficult, I understand, to be opposed to such a budget. But I am opposed to this budget, and I'll explain why in a couple of minutes. But before I talk about the proposed 1920 budget, I just wanted to give you a brief history of my budget positions during my now 6 years on the Board of Selectmen. This is my 6th budget cycle as an elected member of the Board of Selectmen. And in my first year, in 14-15, I fully supported that budget. That was a tricky year because there was a middle school referendum the following month after the referendum, and although the budget went up 2.3%, there was no mill rate increase, and I supported that budget. In 15-16, I was against the budget. It had an initial increase of well over $4 million, and in fact, 63% of the people who voted in the referendum agreed with me that that was too much, and that budget was rejected, and another budget had to be put together that was $1 million lower. So that was one budget that I was against. Then the next 3 years, 16-17, 17-18, and the current 18-19 budget cycles, I supported all three of those budgets proposed by the Frida administration. 2 of them had mill rate increases, 1 did not. So in the 5 previous budgets, I did not support just 1. And I bring this to your attention because I want to make it very clear to people, especially those that have only been following this year's budget, that I don't disagree just for the sake of disagreeing. That has never been my style. That is not my style. It's counterproductive. And anyone who has watched me on the Board of Selectmen or read my column knows that I do not act in that manner. Some people may say, hey, you're the minority party representative on the Board of Selectmen. You should be disagreeing with everything. I have never done that. I have supported many, if not most, of Mr. Frida's initiatives during my almost 6 years on the board. Of course, I have disagreed with him. Of course, I have commended him, and of course, I have offered other perspectives at various times. But I want to stress this is, out of the 5 previous budgets, I've only been opposed to 1. This 6th one is the second one that I oppose, and here's why. And I'm sort of piggybacking on some previous comments already made, but I'll make mine anyway. We do have an increase in spending of $4,868,562. I just think that that's too much. And at a couple of Board of Finance meetings, I did offer about $800,000 in proposed cuts and/or shifts of expenditures to what's known as MRSA, which is a state revenue fund that we have. I don't want to go through all of those proposals again, but I was a bit disappointed that the Board of Finance did not adopt any of those proposed cuts and/or shifts in expenditures. This year, we shifted a great deal of capital purchases to MRSA, almost over 900,000. So that kept those expenditures out of the mill rate calculation. I feel we could have done that with the $300,000 ladder truck, as well as maybe even a couple of other items in the capital budget. And that would have actually helped to achieve a mill rate reduction. So again, I just think that the spending is just a bit high. Also, to my knowledge, for the first time ever, even going back to my time on the Board of Finance in 1985 to 1989, there was no reduction in the Board of Ed budget. The Board of Ed always makes an initial proposal to the Board of Finance. In my knowledge, this is the first time they never got any cut. And I did not see any significant cuts on the town side of the budget from the time of the Board of Selectmen workshop in January till March, when the first budget was proposed. So I do think that there was room for cuts in spending. Also, piggybacking on Ms. Barrett's comment, I do believe the budget lacks transparency. If you look at page 36 of your budget book, you'll see that $1.4 million in debt service is in fact left out. It only reflects about $7.7 million in principal and interest payments on the debt, when in fact the finance Director, Mr. Swinkowski, has stated on several occasions that it is actually $9.1 million. So there is, I agree with the previous speaker, that there is a lack of transparency. And thirdly, I am against this budget because of the hiring of 2 firefighters, and let me stress, without, this is the key, without any plans to activate a second rescue ambulance. And let me just say that 3 other members of the Board of Finance have stated similar opinions in recent months. I believe that the hiring of the 2 firefighters in the middle of this fiscal year was allegedly inappropriate, and that it sort of boxed us into a corner to hire more. The statistics, which I studied in great detail, support the need for a second ambulance to be activated. So the fire chief has made it clear that there's no intention to activate a second ambulance, and for that reason, that third reason, I oppose this budget. I believe we're missing an opportunity to actually reduce the mill rate. We've seen several towns in the area reduce their mill rates, and for that reason, I urge all of the citizens to vote no on May 21st. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
I'm Fritz Bedker, 290 Spring Road. I fully support the comments of the last 3 speakers, with the possible caveat that I'm not as smart as Nancy Barrett, and I don't necessarily comprehend every single number. Yet, as I was advised in several of the Board of Selectmen meetings over the past year, that I should be trusting the experts. Nancy Barrett is an expert. She knows the numbers. I take her word for it. Because it's the Mike Frieda administration, I'm not going to even think that there's smoke and mirrors involved, because Mr. Frieda and his administration has administered the town in an exemplary way. I voted for him from the beginning. I voted for him every time he ran, and I will continue to do so, not necessarily because I love him, which I do, but because the alternative is breathtakingly terrifying. No offense, Democrats. I want to point out that I have been against every budget increase since my first vote way back before there was dirt. I will continue to do so regardless of whether I read the budget or not, because I am dogmatically convinced that every attempt to raise a budget on the part of any government involves too much money that is unnecessary. However, this one is particularly odious. There's a continual inclination among every person in this town and every person in this state to think that they should automatically get more money in their budget. They seem to be functioning according to the presumption that for every posted inflationary increase that they should double or triple that just to be sure. I don't think that we should be incurring more spending, not because Mr. Frieda hasn't figured this out ad infinitum for the next 20 years, which I'm sure he has. I think that there is an inclination to think that the rest of the towns around us are managed as well as this one. If you look at the prospectus of the 169 towns according to Standard & Poor's and several of the agencies that pretty much govern whether or not we get any money, you will find that many of the towns in the state are not managed as well as ours. The state itself is run by lunatics that simply want to confiscate everybody's wallet and never give them back. We should understand that we are $80 billion in the hole statewide. That number will continue to rise, and as it rises, these people in Hartford will continue to look to you to finance their malfeasance and mismanagement. This town will not always have extra money at the end of the year. It won't always be able to put more resources into this town. You'll see right now that we are being asked or told to finance more of our pensions, our teachers' pensions. This is one step out of many that they intend to inflict on this town. Get ready for it. It will happen. We won't always be able to grow our way out of it because our town is of a finite size. We won't always be managed as well as we are now. Think of the rainy day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Victor. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the meeting? Oh, yes, okay, Mr. Katz, I'm sorry.
Sherman Katz, Sherwood Drive, resident of North Haven for 50 years, and happy most all the time. I'm old school. I'm not very eloquent. I'm not polished. I don't have all the numbers that you young people have. But I do want to say, this budget, in the past, when budgets were presented, department heads were told to keep their requests under 3%. This budget represents a 4.9% increase. Some of our purchases are made through the Mercer, which is state money. We can't live with a no mill increase. The surplus that we've built up over the past several years, 3 or 4 years, in my mind, is due to overtaxation. We paid more taxes than we needed to support the budgets that were there. And that money was accumulated to the point where we have a good, considerable amount of money. I don't understand all the things about the bonding and so on. Maybe I did 30 years ago, but not now. This overtaxation, as I call it, should be used to return money to the people that paid it, for the taxpayers of North Haven, the residents and businesses. I don't know what should be changed in the exact amounts for the departments, but I glanced at it and I looked at the budget I picked up tonight, and the printing is so small that I should have brought a magnifying glass with me. But there are places, and I'm sure everyone in here can find something to cut, so that we can use $800 to $1 million of this expenditure to reduce our taxes, even if it's 1/3 to 1/2 mil. In my mind, a reduction is better than a no tax increase. I'm not going to point my finger at any one department. We all know what's been going on for the past year here. I will say Mr. Frieda has brought in tremendous amount of business, industry. I've known him for the better part of 10 years. I respect him. I respect what he does. He's not perfect. Neither am I. Neither is Sally. Or John, you're not perfect either. But
Point taken.
I think he needs to look a little more closely at our pockets. We have more than 50% of our population in this town is seniors on fixed incomes. And as you know, if you're a senior, last year was the first increase that we had in, 4 or 5 years. We have people that are living on under $1,500 a month in Social Security. They're trying to make up their minds whether they should be eating or taking their medications. Even a no tax increase doesn't help these people. A decrease would help them. We do have a senior tax relief program in here that helps quite a bit, although some people don't agree that we should have it. Someday you're going to be old, and hopefully you can afford to take care of yourself, but if you can't, this could be a good benefit for you. I think I'm straying from the subject, but I'm asking everyone, very important. We have a very poor voter turnout for budgets, as well as local elections. I think the number for budget is like 5 or 6%, and that's a shame. There are people in this world that don't have the right to vote. There are countries in this world where there are people, 10 times as many people vote as we do here in North Haven. And I'm ashamed of saying that we have people here that just don't bother to go out and vote, don't show that they are interested in what goes on here. I want you to vote no, but vote the way you want, but please get out and vote, because the fewer votes we have, the more power goes to the few people that control it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. I didn't see any other hands, but I'll take one more look out here, see if anyone else wishes to speak to the budget. And seeing no other hands, I will ask, there is no vote on this. We need to move on to the item that was skipped on the agenda, which is the second and final item, and that is a voting item, so I will ask the town clerk to read that.
Thank you. Number 2, to establish the due date and number of installments for the payment of property taxes, which are real estate, personal property, motor vehicle, and supplemental motor vehicle taxes, in accordance with Section 12-142 and Section 12-144A of the Connecticut General Statutes. Be it resolved that upon approval of the town budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, and in accordance with Section 12-142 and 12-144 of the Connecticut General Statutes, insofar as the adoption of the budget calls for the laying of a tax on property other than motor vehicles, the tax shall be due in 2 semi-annual installments on July 1st, 2019 and January 1st, 2020, respectively, and shall be payable without penalty by August 1st, 2019 and February 1st, 2020. And be it further resolved that insofar as such tax applies to motor vehicles, in accordance with Section 12-144A of the Connecticut General Statute, such tax shall be due in a single installment on July 1st, 2019, and payable without penalty by August 1st, 2019. And as to supplementary taxes on motor vehicles, as provided in Section 12-71B of the Connecticut General Statute, such tax shall be due in a single installment on January 1st, 2020, and payable without penalty by February 1st, 2020. Is there a second?
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the setting of the time for payment of taxes? Yes, Mr. Katz.
Chairman Katz, Sherwood Drive. I have asked for the past 7 or 8 years that the town consider splitting the automobile taxes in half the way they do home real estate. For the following reason: some people have 1, 2, 3, 4 cars. Businesses have 20, 30 cars, vehicles. It's a lot easier to take 2 $500 bills for car taxes and split it in half so you can do 500 and 500 rather than 1,000 at one time. Many people have said they would like to see this happen. I brought this up and I was told that North Haven is not going to do it. I heard Stacy read a Connecticut statute that we have to. We have surrounding towns that have their car taxes paid in 2 parts. North Branford is one of them, and I could sit down and show you a dozen more that I know of. So I'm bringing it up again. I would like to see our taxes for cars split in 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the resolution? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the resolution, say aye. All opposed? Declare the resolution passed, and there being no further business, the meeting will be adjourned to the referendum a week from tomorrow. Thank you.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the Town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.